So on the guest line with us now, we've got Colonel Greg Michel, the Executive Director of the Mississippi Emergency Management Agency. Good morning there, Director Michel. How are you this morning, sir?
I'm doing great, Gerard. How are you, sir?
Well, you're having to switch hats a lot. You're going from COVID to weather, and prior to that, it was floods and tornadoes. It's been busy, as I think some are saying it's just 2020. We've come to expect, I guess, extremes. It's the year of the extremes. Everything is extreme. So now we've got a hurricane. I think it's Hurricane Hanna, if I'm not mistaken, brewing out there, churning up in the Gulf. Looks like headed for Texas and maybe the Texas-Louisiana border last time I looked at it. But certainly streaming rain and weather across the Mississippi Gulf Coast. So what sort of preparations are you guys making? What are you expecting at this point?
Well, so the tropical storm Hanna that you got out there that is supposed to make landfall there in Texas early Saturday morning, dumping a lot of rain on the Gulf Coast right now. So last night, I know Hancock County had a lot of flash flooding, a lot of roads closed, which is typical this time of year, things they experience. So hopefully that'll just dump a lot of rain on us and it'll move inland early Saturday morning. The one that we really got our eye on is going to be, of course, Gonzalo. And depending on what model track you're looking at, it's got it going all over the place. But that's one that could cause us some trouble. But we won't know any more about that really till we get into next week.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some weather here information, and it's obviously very active out in the Atlantic right now. And of course, it was forecast to be an active season early on. Forecasters from the Hurricane Center were calling for a very active year. But we've also got, do we not, Director Michel, something, perhaps it's Douglas that I think is maybe headed for our East Coast. So we've got Gonzalo, we've got Douglas, we've still got other stuff, waves that are brewing out there. And this is the time, it would certainly seem, and this is out of my area of expertise, but that perhaps the conditions are very right in our Gulf with the heat that we've had warming up the waters there.
Yeah. And this is kind of typical as we get later into I say late, we're really still very early in the hurricane season, but we move into the month of August. The predictions were, as you have said, it was going to be an active season. So you got Douglas out in the Pacific threatening the Hawaiian Islands right now. We've got Hanna right off the coast of Texas. We've got Gonzalo that's moving into the Caribbean basin. And then we've also got another tropical wave that we just started tracking today that's coming off basically off the west of the coast of Africa. So it's bubbling up just like it said it was going to be. And, what's concerning about this season is that over half of the storms that are predicted this year are expected to end up in the Gulf of Mexico. So that's not where we want them to be.
Mm. Yeah, I didn't realize that. Appreciate you clarifying that. I'm just looking at the projected track of Gonzalo. Looks like it is presently east of Barbados and headed toward the Lesser Antilles, and then perhaps entering the Gulf, and then who only knows then where it goes once it gets in there and starts spinning up. Absolutely. So, but like I said, though, it's been pretty busy. I've been watching the governor's press briefings on the virus and other matters, and seems like you're regularly flanking his right with Dr. Dobbs on his left as you two individuals advise him and provide valuable input in his guidance and his orders and just what actions he takes. What are you doing along those lines these days? What's the latest for us?
Yeah, so my role in this whole response has been to be the resource provider and support Mississippi Department of Health along the way on this project. With these recent spikes in these cases, our job is to make sure that we continue to resource. And unfortunately, we did not get the lull in the cases that we had hoped we'd get this summer, which would have allowed us to build that stockpile of PPE up. So what we've had to do is really lean forward again in the saddle and get PPE in because it's nationwide. So the demand on it's going to be there. So we've got to make sure the resources are here. when we need it. And of course, you've heard Dr. Dobbs talk about the bed space expansion that we're going
Right.
to or anticipating, and the staffing that comes with that. So we've been in a resourcing mode these last 2-3 weeks, make sure that we have the stuff we need before we need it.
Yeah, so I'm not sure a lot of people understand that there really are a lot of different government organizations that are involved in the response, yours included, obviously, in the way that you just described. And then you've also got this program that was announced, I guess, about 2 weeks ago, maybe a week ago, emergency relief program for local governments, and I believe that they can start applying on the 3rd. Is that correct? Of August? Is that the scheduled date? Tell
That is
us
correct.
about
That's
that.
the COVID. Sure.
Go ahead, Director. Yeah.
COVID-19 emergency relief fund that came about through the legislators, $70 million that was appropriated for counties and municipalities to get reimbursements on their funds. And of course, public assistance, they have been filing applications under the COVID public assistance since the onset of this. But on August the 3rd, as you have mentioned, we will open applications for those expenses that are not eligible under public assistance. They can get 100% reimbursement through the CARES Act track. So that's the piece that we're putting together now, and that application period will open on August the 3rd.
So the state funding, just to clarify, is really designed to assist those localities meet their required 25% match to go along with 75% from FEMA. Is that correct?
Correct. And what we're doing with the CARES Act, part of that $70 million that we're getting, we will, on the public assistance track that will be utilized, we'll use the CARES Act funding of that $70 million to offset their 25% state cost share, and then the other expenses will come through the 100%. So in the end, everything that they file that gets approved will be 100% reimbursed. It'll just be done in a different manner. Obviously, the 75% reimbursement from the feds to those counties, municipalities will be somewhat delayed, but it checks in the mail, so to speak.
Yeah. And because all these municipalities and counties were hit pretty hard, obviously, certainly from a economic activity perspective, which is what generates revenue and sales tax diversions and so forth that go to that level. That's how they fund their operations. And I know many of them have really been hit pretty hard in that respect. And of course, those monies are used to fund law enforcement, police protection, fire protection, emergency services, et cetera, public works, down the list of things that cities and counties do. And losing that revenue is got a lot of them scratching their heads how they're going to make ends meet and fill those voids. So I think this is a good use of that money in a welcome program. Have you been in touch, Director Michel, with any of the city and county leaders with respect to this?
Absolutely, yeah. I speak with community leaders almost on a regular basis about it, trying to talk them through the process as we finalize that CARES Act piece, which will come out on the 3rd of August. But also going to be speaking to the Mississippi Association of Supervisors next month. We have had calls with the governor and Mississippi Municipal League, Mississippi Association of Supervisors. So we're doing everything we can to verbalize and get this information out the best we can.
Well, I know they're looking forward to it because they're all trying to figure out, they're obviously doing their budgets and trying to figure out what their staffing models look like and what they've got available to spend and operate and just service the citizens in their areas. So it's just been a tough deal all around. Of course, we got the federal government now, as you know, debating legislation on the Hill, mainly in the Senate now. The House has already passed their sort of version, which is expected to have some form of relief in it at the state and local level to help sort of shore up some of those shortfalls. We fared pretty well here in the state of Mississippi. I'm sure you've been keeping up with that. It didn't hit us as hard as we thought from an economic perspective, from a government budget perspective. We were anticipating a $500 million shortfall. We end up pretty level with what we were expecting from a revenue standpoint. So not as bad as we thought.
Yeah, and in the same sense, you want to make sure we get this CARES Act money out as quickly as we can.
Absolutely.
So we're kind of working both sides against the middle to get everybody back up right as soon as we can.
Absolutely. Thank you, Director Michel, for joining us today, and thanks for all the good work you guys and your staff at MEMA do for the state of Mississippi. Have a good day, sir.
Thank you, Gerard.